Hey there, I'm Lisa Niven-Kelly for Beaducation.com.
And I'm Mel McCabe with Beaducation.com.
We just shot this great class over on Facebook Live, our Beaducation Live show, but we've edited it and archived it here for you to watch.
If you hear us answering customer questions or talking to customers, you can just ignore that. That was just stuff that was in the moment when we shot the class, but there's still so much great content here.
Yeah, but if you have questions while you're watching this archive, go ahead and leave a comment below if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're watching through our site, just toss us an email at classes@beaducation.com.
And we'll get back to you with an answer.
Yeah, let's get into the video. Now here's a super cool thing about today is Mel and I do our wrap loops really differently, and it's just, you probably learned one way, I probably learned one way, maybe we put something in along the way, but we both been doing it for 25 years.
Quite a long time, yeah.
So we can do it in our sleep. We'll try to slow it down for you, but it's really fun for us to show you two different ways to do it, because one of them might resonate with you, you might do a combination of it, and neither one of us are right or wrong. You know, I always say, I said, just kidding. A wrap loop off. I always say, I said it last week, that, you know, if your end result is pretty, it's not all marred up, everything's good and it's strong and no animals were hurt in the process.
Then you did it right.
Then you did it right. You know, don't get hung up on what teacher told you have to do.
I totally agree.
So this is the open loop.
Basic loop.
The basic loop. You don't want it open. I call it open loop because there's no wrap. But you can see here, it's just a basic loop. Now this was made out of 20 gauge, and the loops are fairly small. I could have made them smaller. If I made them much bigger, they lose their strength because they're so big. So let's give it a sec to focus here. The bigger it is, when you pull on it, it will come undone. Now it just needs a second to refocus. Come on, you can do it, you can do it. There we go. All right. So the bigger the loop, the more that loop will come undone. The smaller the wire, the weaker as well. So open loops, you want them to be, basic loops, you want them to be pretty small, or a heavy gauge wire, 20 gauge. If I needed to bump down to 22 gauge because the hole in the bead was too small or something, I'd probably do a wrap loop like we're about to show you, or I would make teeny tiny loops with the top of my round nose, right?
Right.
Okay, here are wrap loops. Again, we have a slow, not zooming, focusing. I keep saying zoom. But you can see here, if you're not too distracted by my rings, see those wrap loops?
Lovely.
That's our goal here. This is one of the samples from the class that I just showed you.
And that's 24 gauge, right? Would you say 24 gauge is probably the most common?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's about right. 24 gauge or thinner.
I think what's nice is when you do crystals, you can do almost any gauge because the hole is pre-drilled. Drilled like machine.
Yeah.
Sometimes pearls, you might, depending on your strand, you could have a hard time getting some wire through it. I feel like 24 gauge, you're almost always safe. 22 can sometimes be hard.
Yeah, or if you're using semi-precious beads that weren't drilled well, sometimes you got to bump down to 28 gauge. If that's the case, you have to do a wire wrap loop, and you have to have really small actual loops, otherwise they'll totally distort because that wire is so fine. Okay, so Mel's going to talk about those beautiful earrings when it's her turn, but for now, let's slide this out of the way. And here is some 24 gauge wire. So I'm going to show you how I do this. So for this, you need to use round nose, cutter, and chain nose, right? I'm going to start my loop with the round nose. Be careful that every loop that you make, as you shift and move around, you got to make sure that you're working on the same part of your tool. So don't accidentally scoot up to there or way back there, because then your beautiful loop will look like an egg or oval. And you might be going for that look, but I'm not.
You have to do it every time.
Yeah,
to make it consistent.
That'd be difficult. All right, so here's how I do wrap loops. The first side always looks pretty good because you don't have a bead in the way and you're not limited on the amount of space you have. But I hold it with the size of my round nose that I want the loop to end up. I usually, with a short round nose, I'm right in the middle. Maybe sometimes a little bigger. You can go tiny, tiny. That's up to you. If you want to be consistent and you're cranking out a chain, you can mark it with chain or with a Sharpie, or you...
Donna just said that too. Mark it with a Sharpie.
You're smart. Or you can scratch it with a scribe. A tiny little scratch is not going to affect your loop. The Sharpie will come off over time. All right, I leave a little bit poking up, usually about a 1/2 inch. And I'm going to roll away from me because I can get much more movement doing that than cranking towards myself, and it's actually better for my wrist. I'm going to roll away from me, pushing the wire against the plier until I cannot move anymore. So instead of taking my tool out and going, what, where was I? And then accidentally going back in the wrong part, I'm going to roll away from me, loosen my grip, bring it back, keep it on that spot of the tool, don't meander, squeeze, and keep going in that fashion until you get a straight line with a loop sticking out of it. Maybe we should have done this with 16 gauge so I could see it better.
Oh,
That would have
yeah.
been so hard. Okay, straight line with a loop sticking out of it. Now again, when I do this, it's going to seem confusing because I'm moving so slow. Same with Mel. We're going to walk you through it, and then we're going to do it quickly so you can sort of see that it flows really easily. All right, I've got this, and now I need to center that loop on my wire. I can take my chain nose or the very tip of my round nose, not squeezing too hard so I mar it, and shift. So now I'm basically looking at an eye pin with a tail sticking out. At this point, this is the spot where you need to put in the other side of your chain or your ready-made chain or something, because if you wrap this bad boy shut, it's wrapped shut. So I've got a little start here, and I'm just going to click it right in there. You might have to open it a little bit, but only open it enough to slide it in. Don't open it really big.
And if you open it up. Can you show them even with the chain nose so they're not distorting the actual circle?
Yeah,
but they're
yeah,
just opening it from the side.
Good. If you need to open it, do not grab it with your round nose, because anytime you grab
Yes.
with a round nose, it gives
gonna
it
bend
a big, it gives it like a big nick in the wire. Grab it with your chain nose and open it like
Yes.
a jump ring.
Because I see that all the time where folks will open it and then open up the loop, and then the loop ends up it's distorted.
Yeah, so they actually made this perfect loop and then ended up killing it.
Yes,
That's sad.
I know.
Okay, don't do that. All right, so this guy's in there, and now I can wrap it shut. Now, wrapping it shut, you want to hold it still within your chain nose, and you can just keep that guy with you. See, this guy's kind of in my chain nose too. I'm not smashing it or try to get underneath it. All I'm doing here is holding it so I can wrap that tail. Don't do this with your round nose either, because if you hold it with your round nose, you're going to
smush
get
it.
2 little mars right there and on the other side. So if that's happening to you, you might take a look at how often you're holding the wire with your round nose. Okay, so I like to flip it over because I like to wrap with my right hand. If it was long enough, I could do this with my hand, but I'm going to wrap it by holding the tail with my round nose. Now, hang on, Lisa, you just said don't hold it with your round nose. But this tail right here, where I'm holding, I'm going to be cutting it off. Truth be told, when I do wire work, I have 2 chain nose on hand, or I have a chain nose and a flat nose, and so I'd use both. But you really only need these 3, and you can use this, in this case, just as a handle, really.
And I use the round nose, and it works well.
Yeah, because it's not, you're going to be trimming this off, so you can mar it up all day. All right, I'm going to start my wraps. Up. Sometimes you have to move that little chain nose out of the way, and under, and I'll show you a couple tricks on the next time through.
I just love that everyone, Nancy and Claudia, you guys are all doing your Donna, all the crying tears emoji for me. I'm loving it. Thanks, guys.
Because my singing was so good?
Yeah, because I said I loved it.
You're funny. All right, so you get to decide as many wraps as you want to do, but I do about 2 to 3 because the way I do it on the second side fits. Whatever you do, make sure they're consistent. Because Mel, how much does it bother you when you see a wrap loop chain and the wraps are all different?
I
or they're not
know.
even? Does
Yeah.
it make you just squirm? All right, so now I've got this. I've got my loops and I've got my coils.
And your little tail.
I'm going to come in with my cutter, and instead of just coming up on top and cutting it, I'm going to take the tip of my cutter and actually get in there in the coil and cut
Donna
it off.
asked what's the difference between flat nose and chain nose.
Chain nose come to a point like this. Flat nose are flat at the end. We don't have a pair right here, but if you look on our site, they're just basically the same thing, except they don't come to a point. They come to a squared end. So, all right, there, I've got it nice and trimmed, and you can see why you would want a cutter with a pointy tip, because you can get right in there. If you did have a little tail poking out and you don't want it to scratch you, you can come with your chain nose and just sort of squeeze it down. All right, so now I've got my little wrap loop with a bead on it, and you can come in with your round nose now. And this is where a lot of people do it different than I do. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. Start up a little bit and come down towards the bead. So I'm going to hold it right here with the same part of my round nose. I start up about a 1/2 inch and roll down towards the bead, so that when I'm done, I've got, again, there's that straight line if you think about the tail and the wire that's going through the bead, and a loop sticking off the side. I already had my round nose in my hand, so for production purposes, it's a lot easier to just yerk, yerk. Now I've got it perfectly centered. Look at that nice round loop.
Looks great.
And because I'm not putting anything into this side of my chain until I add the next loop, I can go ahead and wrap it shut. Now let me show you a little trick with the wrapping. What I see people do a lot is they'll start to wrap, and because this pliers in the way and so forth, the wraps end up going down at a slight angle, and then you end up seeing a little bit of the neck. So when I do my first wrap, I kind of pull it up towards the plier, like get it as close, snug up to that loop as possible. You see that?
That makes sense, yeah.
And then now I can hold the wire in my hand because I've got this long length. Wrap as much as you can. Hopefully it's equivalent to the first side. And come in with your cutter. And there's an airplane coming in for a landing. And trim. Okay, now if anything weird happens, like always when you do a live demo, or there's a camera on your shoulder and you're in an awkward angle, if you do have a weird loop, like remember how great my loop was, and then I wrapped it and I was moving my hands around, now it's all tweaked. Hopefully you've practiced enough that this doesn't happen, so this isn't a normal step for me, but if it does, I'm just going to put it on my round nose and sort of push it up, and bring it back to round.
Yep.
And then that's much better. That's a little trick for you.
Like locking your sweater when it comes out of the dryer.
Okay. Perfect, exactly. All right, so I'm going to do that one more time, but faster without talking it through so you can see the flow, because that was probably that was a million weird steps, and Mel and I are both going to do that. But what I want to remind you, this goes for whichever one of our techniques you go for, you need to practice this 1,000,000 times. Okay, not 1,000,000, but let's give it 10 times. Make them, cut them, toss them. Get used to the technique. No cussing, no saying you suck until you've made 10. Fair enough?
Oh yeah, I even think 20, really.
20, okay.
Just make a whole bracelet and give it to your mother-in-law.
No, don't try to make something. Then they'll get stressed out. Like make
my
it,
point
cut
is,
it,
can
make
really
it.
look bad if you wanted to.
Oh, that's not nice.
I'm just kidding, guys.
You're bad. All right, so I'm going to do it a lot faster so you can see how it flows for me. All right, I'll talk you through it, but I'm going to do it a lot quicker. There's my loop. See it? It's not very focused. And then I crank it. Then I put this eye on. Hold it with my chain nose. This isn't a big squeeze with my chain nose, it's just holding it still so I can get my wraps.
Which I think that takes practice, the tension of holding it with your left
so
hand. Or
right.
you're right if you're left-handed, because you're just not used to using that hand that much.
It's true.
Or maybe you
and
are.
Beginners always squeeze too hard.
Yes.
Always. So if you see your thumbnails turning white, you need to chill out, man. So one more fix it. If anything ever happens where your coil is scooted down, you can come in with your chain nose and put one side in the loop and one side on the back of the coil.
Oh yeah.
Give it a
Kinda
little
smush
squeeze.
it, yeah.
And it scoots it. Scooty scoot. Okay, so that was the first half.
You usually work with a really long wire. I, after a while, get in a habit and kind of know my lengths, and then I just cut out my little, like 2.5-inch sections too.
Oh, that's interesting. I way prefer working on a long wire because I don't want to have any sterling waste.
And that totally makes sense.
And I like having a handle.
I don't like putting the whole bead, like going to the bother of having to take the bead all the way onto that 2 feet. So I think it's just preference.
Oh yeah, I don't work on 2 feet, but you're totally right. Those are both good ways to figure out what works best for you. Okay, so this one scooting down, what I wanted to show you is if you meet the bead before you have a straight line, just pull your tail up to have a straight line. Let me show you that again. So that would mean that I started too short up, came on down, hit the bead. Same if you come down, you make your loop, and you have your straight line with a loop, but there's a neck there, you want no neck. You want that loop to be touching right up against your bead. So in that case, just keep turning and undo. So you're taking from one and giving to the other. There's your goal, straight line with a loop sticking out the side. Kink it, wrap it, wrap it. And this is why I like to have at least a little bit of a length, because then I can do this part with my hand.
It is nice to be able to use your hand. And I think if you're just starting out, like you're doing your first initial 10, try it with your hand. I mean, rather than using 2 tools.
I think it helps to learn the dynamics.
I think so
right?
too, and then
That's
you
a
can
good
switch
tip.
it out to the tool.
And again, right there with the tip, I'm way down in there because I really don't want to have to go back in and burnish down that tail, because I could clip my bead.
You can, and especially with a glass or a piece of crystal. I have done that before where I've went to kind of push it in and nicked it, and that's disturbing.
Yeah, that's bad news. All right, so a couple tips on that. I think you saw, and if on the video that we have on our site, I show it this way. I think I may show it both ways, actually. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. So go ahead and check that out. But now Mel's going to show you how she does it, a little bit different, and it might resonate more with you. So give them both a try.
Okay.
You're up.
I'm up. Okay, guys.
What's the color of that bead you were just working with?
That is Pacific Opal.
Pacific Opal. Okay, guys. I take my round nose plier. I hold on. I think you did the same thing here. This is right here. And I push this away from me so that I have a 90-degree angle. I then put my tool into the armpit of the 90 degrees.
You said armpit.
Well, it just looks like an armpit. And I push it toward me to make an elephant trunk.
You can tell Mel has a 5-year-old.
I know. This all comes back to when I used to teach swim lessons too. Put the lower part of your round nose plier into the elephant head. Make sure you fill it all up there. Turn slightly and pull that trunk around so that you have the same little guy that Lisa had here.
Yeah, so that's just, we're getting to the same place,
Yes.
just different directions. They both work awesome.
Exactly. Then I take my chain nose. I open it up to the side just like this a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and put it right into...
Or did you want to do pod paraja?
Oh, I could do pod
You
paraja.
like pod paraja.
I do. Go ahead and hook that in. Take my chain nose again. Hold on, just like Lisa did here. This, I'm using my left hand, I'm right-handed. And then take your round nose and
Get to wrapping.
get to
You're
wrapping.
going to beatbox again and spit on the camera?
No, I will not do that. But my head is down, so this would be a good time to do it. I'd be
If Taryn was
sitting
here,
on
she
the
would bust out a
on the
sick
velvet
rap.
pad. That's true. Okay, you're the rapper. You should be rapping. You are so good.
No, that's beatboxing. It's different.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know all of this.
See, I have teenagers.
Yes, you're
so-
right. Putting on the pod parashka right there. Then I do the same thing. I take my round nose. I hold it basically on my tool to this right here is where I can measure, okay, that's going to give me 2 loops, if that
Yeah,
makes
that's-
sense.
that's great.
If I wanted to do it here, it'd be 1 loop. If I wanted to do it here, it'd probably be 3 loops. So I go right here for 2 loops, push away again. Whoops, sorry guys. There you have this. Then I'm going to go ahead and put the round nose right in the armpit again. Turn the wire around to make my elephant trunk. This is where I pull the plier out. I put the bottom part of the round nose into the elephant head.
Without shifting up to a smaller part of your
That's
plier.
right. Fill it all the way up completely. Pull that trunk around. And then I have this guy right here.
I'm now remembering a third way that people do this. It's like kind of
Oops.
a mixture.
Oh, really? Huh. And let me just show you guys just so you can see here. This is also where if you were putting this into a chain, you would then put your end, feed it into the chain.
Pamela says this is invaluable information.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Thank
So there's
you.
your chain right there. This is a great way to, if you wanted to attach a clasp, this way too, to the end of your chain. Go ahead, let the chain kind of dangle. Hold on to the loop with your chain nose. And then here I'm gonna do the same thing as Lisa, wrap with my hand. Wrapping with my hand. I don't know. That was pretty bad.
That sounded like Taryn.
It kind of did. I was kind of going for DMX, but that wasn't that good, huh? And then go ahead and smush with your chain nose. So here, if you wanted that to, let's say you're making some earrings and it was going to dangle there. There's that guy.
Or just like, I love the look of that. I'm envisioning like a couple more links and then more ready-made chain.
That's true. Yeah, you could just have this and then like a little more chain and just kind of have these speckled throughout, right?
So the wire wrap loop, you can make a chain, you can use it to securely add a clasp to a chain.
You can make earrings.
You can make earrings.
Do a couple of them and then just attach your ear wire, have a little drop here or just a head pin. That's the other thing. Let me show you guys this.
Yeah, let's do the head pin.
You could, from the bottom of this, if you want to end it, grab a head pin, and I'll grab another podparashka. There is my crystal.
So now it's just like doing the second half of a
Exactly,
double
yeah. Push it away from you. Go into the armpit. Elephant trunk. I'm going a little faster, guys, but just because you've seen it twice before. And did you see that? I almost grabbed it with my round nose, but then I didn't. Now, if I wanted to put this on the end to, like, let's say complete an earring. And then use your hand. And if you had a smaller head pin, let's say like a 1 inch or 1.5, you can use your round nose. But I do like using my hand if you have a longer length already there. And then, how pretty is that? So you could actually just have like a little ear wire right here, or even put the ear wire right here. It'd be kind of pretty, huh? I did silver and copper, you guys, so it'd be easier to see.
Yeah, and the purpose of this wrap is not only security, it can be a design element.
Oh yeah,
right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like Mel said in the beginning, these crystal beads are big enough that I think they almost take a 20 gauge. It's crazy, but the look is awesome. So it might be a security issue where you want to use a bead with a tiny little hole and, like a gemstone, or you might just like the look. I love to take that chain and then oxidize it, and so I get the oxidation and the black down in the grooves of the coil. It gives it a really antique look. I would do that with liver sulfur if I'm working with sterling. And okay, talking through these earrings.
Okay, what I'm going to show you guys is if you're doing, let's say, a charm bracelet, or with a lot of beads, or you're doing earrings like this are my favorite, you guys. I probably have made 100 pair in my lifetime. What I do is I do it kind of, I think the easiest way is if you're doing something where it's going to have 5, 10, these I think I have 25 crystals hanging from them. Line them all up, like put all 20 there on your head pin. Then, and this I feel is less wear on your hands, go ahead and do the step where you're going to push it away, create your elephant trunk, and then open this up and do as many as you want of that step first. Then, when you get to the chain part, you will be doing the same motion. So you won't have to, like right now I'm only holding my round nose plier for all of this, which is kind of nice. I mean, you could be catching up on some marathon show, like Cake Boss.
Well, I want to point something out though, because so Mel and I show the correct way to do it, and then we break a couple of rules. Like you're using your round nose right now to open that loop.
You're right, that's terrible.
The issue here is, it doesn't matter, because you've done this so many times, you can hold it soft enough that you're not marring your wire.
You're right.
So she knows exactly, if I were to pick up her loops, and look at them, I bet there's no little lines on her wire because she's so used to it. So I break a couple rules because I know how lightly to hold it to not mess up your wire. So I think that teaching people to do it with the chain nose is perfect, but seeing that you can actually do it with that once you become a little professional like Mel is totally worth it.
Well, that makes sense. The other thing I wanted to tell you guys, because I've seen a couple of posts where people have made these amazing single earrings, like single stamped earrings with some stones on them or crystals. And then you have to go to make the second one, and it is so not fun making the second one. You just wish you had a magic wand to make the second one. You're like, I already did the first one. What I do is I usually make them both at the same time. This is something my sister taught me. So here I have the chain, it's connected. you see here. And if I was going to make these earrings, this way you're going to get them correctly. They're going to be the same right along. And then if you go to take a break, you're not going to end up wimping out on making the second one because you're just halfway done with both of them.
Yeah, and that's how you get them to match. I do the same thing when I do earrings of like mandala stamping. You want to do them both at the same time so you can remember what you did.
Well, and with that, I feel like you might even have the same pressure because sometimes you stamp a little differently if you're, relaxed or maybe stressed, and you'll actually have, it will look similar, like you said. So here I do the ends of both of them. And here I think this is a 2-inch head pin. You could definitely do a 1.5. So I already started out, there is the beginning of my earring. And then I would say, like with this guy here, I want this to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops up on the second one. And what's so perfect is you don't have to worry about even finding the other chain. You can do your 5 loops up on both of them at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
And I think this is an easier way to do it. And it's kind of more relaxing because with this motion now, I'm just taking the chain nose. Don't even have to use the round nose for this, and the cutter. So everything I do from this point forward is the chain nose and the cutter and listening to Cake Boss.
That is...
But you know what I mean?
That's really, really good production advice. I love that.
It's kind of fun. This way you don't have to think about it as much. You just go, I see where that one is. It's right there. Because you got the other one right beside you, and you're not going to mess up. Yes. This is the last one I'll do.
And then I'll show one more thing before we go up.
So here I have the beginnings of my earrings that are going to be matching.
This whole time we've been using Tronics, but we also have Lindstrom here. These are look at these tools. These are my tools that I've had for as long as these ergonomic handles have been out, which I'm not sure, maybe 10, 15 years? I don't know. They're a little bit messy, but they have not affected the way that they perform.
Don't you kind of love them too? Like they're yours.
Oh yeah. That's why I have the crystal glued onto it. Don't be taking my tools. But they both work great. So for this next thing, I'm just going to use these so you can see that we prefer them both. I'm remembering now the way that you do it, Mel. I've seen people do it semi-similar, and I think I may show it in that class, but what they do is they start with the chain nose.
Oh, okay. And push
because you can get, and the round nose, when you're working with wire, the small works great. But if you were working with 18 gauge, the round nose would make a loop rather than a kink.
That makes sense.
And Mel, you work mostly with tiny wire, right?
I do, yeah.
So that's going to give you a strong right angle. And then I've seen people put it in the armpit, as she says, and bring it over, and then just move your plier and get it around without having to come out. But
that's a good point too.
But again, both
personal preference.
Both work great. It's whatever works for you, whatever habit you've gotten into, and if the loop at the end of the world looks good and it's strong, then I say you're looking good.
Yeah, Donna mentioned too, she does that she'll do the loops as an extender on a necklace. And you guys, I love that idea. You just have these. You can make your loops a little bit bigger, and then people could actually put the clasp in any one of these if you don't know how you want the length that you want your necklace to be, and because of your shirt.
Yeah, I love it. Because of your shirt.
Well, if you have a V-neck or a high neck.
Yeah, depending how much skin you want to show.
Yes.
Okay, so basically 2 things I want to point out. Tips for these loops. Number 1 is staying on the same spot of your round nose. Wouldn't you agree? I agree. So mark it. It's for both of our techniques. Stay on that same spot. If you wander up, you're going to get an oval. I oftentimes see people who their technique is perfect, spot on, but their loops are coming out kind of teardrop shape. And it's what's going on? And then I take a close look at their pliers that they spent $6 on at a craft store. No offense, craft stores, but the pliers not round. And so it's so frustrating. I've seen people almost give up on jewelry making because of their tools. Now again, shop wherever the heck you want. Not a sales pitch to hit, shop on Beaducation.com, although you're welcome to. Go wherever you want, but please, please, please take a look at your tools, and crappy tools might be the problem.
I agree. I mean, the round nose, like you said, is a huge deal, and your cutter is a big deal too, because you have to, if it has a little edge on it where it's going to scratch someone, and every single time you got to go in there with your chain nose, it takes the joy out of making something.
It's true. And let us know in the comments if you have this experience, so it doesn't just look like we're trying to sell you.
No,
sell you
because
some expensive
I still
tools.
needed it. I still need those cutters like that because that's where I cut, like my picture hanging wire or something.
Sure. Yeah. But tools.
Thanks for tuning in today, you
Thanks
guys.
for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Bye.